Mahabalipuram exhibit the different types of vimanas, like a magnificent periodic table of Dravidian architecture. These are carved from top to bottom. The 5 monuments, popularly known as Panch Rathas, are temples to Shiva, Vishnu, Skanda, Durga and Ganesha. There are 3 freestanding sculptures of animals, a lion, an elephant and a bull, symbolizing the vehicles or vahans of gods. Every rock and every boulder here stands tall as a testimony to the architecture of the Pallava kings.
So the two premiers, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping, now have completed their tour, almost completed their tour of the 3 heritage sites in Mahabalipuram. They've visited the Arjuna Pendant, started off from there, then the Panch Rathas and of course the Shore Temple. And this is where they'll make their pit stop now. With this temple as the backdrop by the seas, they're going to be sitting down to discuss some of the issues that the two leaders want to talk about in this informal summit. So the visuals of the two leaders already spending some time together while the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi showcases the monuments and the heritage sites there in Mahabalipuram. It seems like the Prime Minister is, of course, telling him a lot about the background and the significance of these heritage sites. And now they'll be making their pit stop to sit down and discuss the key issues that India and China would want to discuss with each other. Some very good visuals coming in as far as the atmosphere between the two leaders is concerned, very casual, informal, as is the spirit of such a summit, the second one after Wuhan, really showcasing not just the ancient glory of the Pallav dynasty, but of course in Mahabalipuram, the shared heritage of India and China, as well as it was an important trade center, part of the Chinese Silk Route. So a lot of trade that happened during the Pallav dynasty between the two ancient cultures. And perhaps with that as the backdrop and with that as the spirit, India and China will now sit down and try to flesh out certain thorny issues and also look forward to areas of cooperation, these two being the giants from Asia.
And we see the arrival of the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, here at the Pancharatha site. Taking pride in one's culture is what makes us Indians special. And today the Honorable Prime Minister is dressed in the traditional dress of Tamil Nadu. He receives President Xi, a beautiful setting sun adding magical light to the site. The Panch Rathas are also known as the Panch Pandava Rathas, and they are an excellent example of monolithic architecture. The Pallava kings who built these rathas were known to experiment with new and different forms of art and architecture. They pioneered rock-cut architecture that can be seen all around the Mahabalipuram complex. The first small structure is called Draupadi Ratha. It looks like a hermit's abode with a hut-like thatched roof with a curved effect. The shrine is dedicated to Goddess Durga. In the foreground is the mount of the goddess, the standing lion. And this is the Nakul Sehde Ratha. It is apsidal in its shape. There are no figure carvings on this Ratha, but its beauty lies in its simplicity. Next to it stands a life-size monolithic elephant. This is a fine example of Pallava imagination and propensity for experimentation. And this is the Bhim Ratha, or the chariot. This is the largest of the 5 structures, with a roof that is shaped like a country wagon. It's interesting how these Rathas are named after Pandavas, epic heroes from the epic, the Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata, which dates back to circa 5th century BC, mentions China. So we know that our ties with China go back thousands of years. The Yudhishthir or Dharmaraj Ratha is the tallest structure. It depicts the maturing of temple architecture and is the most refined of the 5 structures. It became the basis of the temples to come later during the reign of the Cholas and others thereafter. The base of this shrine is supported by carved pillars with lion bases and corner supports. There are many lifelike sculptures on the corners of this shrine that depict various manifestations of Lord Shiva. The 2 leaders pause for a moment to admire these great works of art. One of the greatest of Chinese poets is Li Bai, who lived in the 8th century. His words resonate on this occasion. We sit together, the mountain and me, until only the mountain remains. In only such a meditative state could the artists have created such works of beauty, and the beauty in turn takes one into a meditative state. The relations between India and China go back at least 2,000 years. The Tamil and Chinese interaction is at least 13 centuries old. So it is quite easy to imagine travelers coming here to admire these very sights, to wonder at these structures in the ancient times, just as we admire them today. Perhaps Hyun Tsang, who was here during the Pallava period, did walk here with his friends and admire the sheer beauty of these structures. These beautiful structures have been left unfinished. No one really knows why. Li Bao has said, "No one understands now those who could hear a song this deeply vanished long ago." The first records of contact between China and India were written during the 2nd century BC. Buddhism was transmitted from India to China in the 1st century AD. Trade relations via the Silk Road acted as economic contact between the two regions. There is a 1,000-year-old history between Chuanzhou and Tamil Nadu. Tamil traders lived there during the Song and Yuan dynasties and built temples there. The most famous being the Chedian temple, which has a beautiful deity which is called by a different name in China. But archaeologists believe that the style of that deity is exactly similar to the kind of work that was being done at the same time in India. In the 1930s, dozens of stones showing perfectly rendered images of the god Narasimha, the man-lion avatar of Vishnu, were unearthed in Chuanzhou. Chanakya, in circa 350 BC, who was the prime